Hello, the reason I'm doing this video is because I've spent 40 years researching and know where to find the evidence. I make my own videos and sometimes I get people telling me I'm wrong because they have listened to another researcher. I then watch the researcher's video, as 99% of the time they never show evidence and they have it wrong. So I make a video showing where they are wrong with evidence. I could just let people make up stuff and tell me I'm wrong. But after 40 years of working things out that no other researcher has ever done, I feel I have to give the real information with evidence. To give you a bit of background why I can make this video showing the errors in the Why Files video, here's some of the mysteries I've solved with evidence. I have created a documentary on who Yahweh really was, who Jesus' real father is, Stonehenge, what Valhalla was. I have given the answer to who was at Atlantis, when and what happened to it. I am the person that worked out the 10 plagues of Egypt actually started in Israel. Göbekli Tepe, I have explained what it was for and who made it. I have made the best documentary on mermaids. I have gave details on why and when Easter Island had the statues. It's not when you think. I have shown evidence where the crystal skulls are not debunked. I even show evidence that the people that debunked it are not telling the whole truth. I have shown what the frost giant was in Norse, and much more, all with evidence. Please don't get me wrong, I really enjoy watching the Why Files, but this is one subject that he and his researchers seem to have listened to other bad researchers. I did actually put posts on his videos when I heard he was doing a video on the Anunnaki. I offered my help. Either he didn't see the videos or thought I wouldn't know as much as him because I'm a nobody. With that all said, here is where the Why Files went wrong. It's pretty much the whole video. Oh, if the Why Files are watching, the offer is still there to help you make a real video where you can show evidence instead of just talking about things. The Why Files host name is AJ. In his video, he says,
At 47 minutes, AJ says this: almost all the Anunnaki ancient alien story comes from the work of Zecharia Sitchin.
That is totally and utterly wrong. This shows he only looked at Sitchin's work. Sitchin was an author of books on the Anunnaki, but he said in an interview he never translated the tablets. Yes, he could read them, but he said they were already translated, and they have been. I had already done a documentary called The Lost Book of Our True History. It's 3 hours long, and in the video I go through the ancient tablets, and I don't use Sitchin's book as a reference, unlike all the other bad researchers out there. I did my own research. The documentary is on my website, but here is part of it that shows those translations were not done by Sitchin. Hello and welcome to The Lost Book of Our True History. And I'm doing this video because people have said that the book Lost Book of Enki by Zecharia Sitchin is wrong. And in fact, so much so that they've even made websites such as this one here, which says sitchiniswrong.com. And I felt that's quite bad because I've done my research and I believe he's 100% right. So I thought I'd do a video actually debunking everyone else that says he's wrong. So Zecharia Sitchin is the gentleman here who is an author, or was, unfortunately he's passed now, of many books to do with the Sumerians. Not just the Sumerians, but to do with the Mesopotamia, should I say, because obviously Babylon, there's texts, different language texts within what he's studied. So I don't want to just keep saying Sumerian. We've got to work out now whether or not sitchiniswrong.com is wrong. And the actual author of that, Dr. Michael Heiser, has now passed in February 2023. I did try and contact this person many times, and of course they ignored me because he probably couldn't answer my questions, which is fair enough. But I think it's really bad that that's still out there. And the reason why it's bad is because this guy not only tried to debunk Sitchin, where I've done videos on my Patreon page that debunk him quite badly, he's also a Christian author. So in other words, he does not want his books to be outsold by alien books when he's trying to pretend that there's a God. And I say pretend because as you watch this video, you'll realise that the gods that come first were the Anunnaki. So let's see now whether or not there is anything called the Anunnaki. because that is the whole premise of this. And the translations come down to those that from heaven came to earth. And here we have the first translation of the word Anunnaki. And this is not by Zecharia Sitchin. Everything that I'm showing you is not by Zecharia Sitchin, because otherwise it'll be me talking about his work. So this one here is translations of the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is basically a series of tablets. And this was translated by Maureen Gallery Kovacs. And as you see there, the translation they've come up with is Anunnaki. And guess what they've called them? The Great Gods. Now that's not what they've called them, that's what's in the tablets. This is what's translated. Now, again, going back to the word Anunnaki, is there such a word that Zecharia Sitchin keeps waffling on about? There is. So this is the first one of many that I'm going to be showing you. So this is from, as I just mentioned there, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Here is another word where it says Anunnaki by a different translator, Samuel Noah Kramer. So again, not Zecharia Sitchin. How many times is the word Anunnaki in here? We'll just keep going. Anunnaki, Anunnaki, Anunnaki. So if Zecharia Sitchin is wrong with the word Anunnaki, then everyone else is wrong. But I haven't finished yet. There's other translations from other people. Let's have a look here. Another translation there. So this one is from Myths. It's crazy because it's called Myths from Mesopotamia. However, the Bible copies from it. So how can it be myths? 2 million tablets that we found that we're aware of. Obviously, some factions hide certain tablets that we would love to see, but basically we're aware of 2 million tablets. And it's a myth. And yet the Bible copies from these. And I'll prove all that as we go. So this person done this in 1912, I believe, the translation. As you see, Anunnaki, 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 all in this other person, not Zecharia Sitchin's translations, and it goes on. Another one here, the Babylonian legends of creation. So this is from the Babylonian text, not Sumerian text. That's why I say you have to. And this one's 1921 down the bottom there. That was translated by, I'm trying to find the person's name, but it's in the British Museum there. Does the British Museum hold something that has the word Anunnaki? Oh, there it is. Yep, there it is again. And there it is again, showing the actual tablet that it comes from, and so on. I can just keep clicking. You see the word Anunnaki. So the word Anunnaki is real. If you look here, asked in ChatGDP. Now I know you're going to say, well, that's biased. It is to a point, I'll give you that. So I asked various questions. I always ask questions here just to see what it says. And look what this translates the word to. Look at that. It says, now this isn't Sitchin, this isn't a person, this is a computer, artificial intelligence that's read all of these tablets. And trust me, when you ask it questions, it knows a lot. So this has even said the word Anunnaki translates to those from the heavens came in Sumerian. Those from the heavens came. Now this person here, Dr. Michael Heiser, back in 2012, I sent him an email because I saw one of his videos where he said, no, it was called Princely Seeds. So here's a video with Dr. Michael Heiser. The actual title on YouTube is called Sitchin Was a Liar by Dr. Michael Heiser, Debunking Ancient Aliens.
The term itself means of royal seed or princely seed.
Okay, so he's talking about the Anunnaki there as the term. Only Enlil, Enki, and Nimna are described here on Earth as the siblings of King Anu. Now, King Anu is the one that resided on Nibiru, which was the king. So in other words, the only princes and princesses we have are the three. So that was Enlil, Ea, which was original name for Enki, and Nimna, which was the original name for Ninharsag. So let's look a little bit further here. So here we're looking at a passage in the Babylonian flood story translated in 1912, not by Zecharia Sitchin. This is just one of many, where it says, the Anunnaki lifted up their torches. So the Anunnaki here clearly are not the brothers and sisters, because if you actually read the whole of this passage, you'll see that there's no mention of Enlil and Enki at that point regarding them being with the group of Anunnaki that lifted up their torches. So we've got proof that there are princely seeds. Yes, Enlil, Enki, and Ninhursag or Nimna. But the Anunnaki does not mean that it's just those three, because clearly here, this is just one. You can go and look it up and you'll find Anunnakis mentioned many a time without Enlil, Enki, or Ninhursag being involved. In other words, there was 900 Anunnaki originally came down. Anunnaki wasn't the actual original name for the race. I believe the race name is gods, or God, just like humans. And obviously it was down the line, it was translated into Elohim, and obviously we all praise gods, but people would praise humans if we went to their planet and created workers. So we've got proof here that Dr. Michael Heiser was wrong in terms of the Anunnaki wasn't just for princely seeds. Now the other part of this is when you break down the word Anunnaki, it actually does end up with the word Kai, which is the last word, being earth, and Kai is an actual name for earth back from them days. So it makes sense that the actual breakdown, which is how Zecharia Sitchin did it, Anunnaki, those that came from heaven, to earth, Ki being earth.
JKI, place. Today's word is ki, which means place. It can also mean ground or earth, and is a term for the netherworld. Ki is also used as a determinative indicating something is the name of a place, but instead of being put before the place name, as is usual for determinatives, it's put after the place name. Lagash Kai, for example, to talk about the city of Lagash. You will find that everywhere except that Kai is the meaning of earth. There is nowhere that says Ki means princely seeds or royal blood or anything that Dr. Michael S. Heiser said it does. As far as I can tell, he was the only one that translated Anunnaki to mean what he said.
So now we know who Enki and Enlil were. They were the sons of King Anu. Now we've got to try and work out now, before I go into the good stuff about how the Bible copied and how they're actually aliens, etc. We need to look at whether or not they are actually real characters. It's all well and good saying that they're the son of kings and this, that and the other. There's some people out there that believe that the texts are just a comic book. In other words, if in 100 years' time or 1,000 years' time someone looked back and found Harry Potter, would they believe that Harry Potter books actually meant that there was someone alive at that point? So we need to now rule out that they're actually not just comic book characters, but they are actually real. So here we've got the Stanford Library's website, and it shows you here there are far more tablets in existence than I could have imagined. This is a person writing this for Stanford University. In fact, between 500,000 and 2 million cuneiform tablets are estimated to have been excavated in modern times, of which only approximately 30 to 100,000 have been read or published. So where we're talking about Enki and Enlil, etc., we're only talking about a small amount out of 2 million that's actually been even translated with their names on. So let's have a look now and try and prove that Enlil and Enki were real characters. So now we're on to the British Museum Library. Now, do the British Museum talk about Enlil and Enki? Let's have a look. Now this is the actual words that they use. This is how they translate the ancient tablets. And if you keep going down, you'll see, you might like our blog or librarian Ashurbanipal, he was a king back in the olden days, a collection of more than 20,000 clay tablets and fragments. So basically they're saying here that there's 20,000 tablets in their library alone. Not every single tablet talks about Enlil and Enki, but that's a hell of a lot of tablets for the very first species that could read or write to start making up stories about fictitious people. Now here is the Oxford University translation site, and you can actually just type in at the top something like Enlil or Enki or whatever you want to type in, and each one of these blocks here I'm just showing you now is just part of a whole tablet. So this, when it searches, it actually searches and gives you a snippet of what the original tablet may be talking about. And of course it points out the bit that you're looking for, so it's quite good. And as you can see here, I'll just scroll down. Enki is mentioned many times in many tablets. It carries on and on and on and on and on. You get the point. But let's just type in Enlil while we're here and see if Enlil comes up in the Oxford University translations of... Yes, there's Enlil. And obviously they're talking about Enlil being sons of this. Look, there's Nibiru there. I have been to Nibiru. See that? Right at the top there. I don't know if you can see that. Now, Nibiru is another name for Nibiru. Watch my previous videos on my Patreon page about actually Nibiru being Nibiru, and you'll hopefully agree that I'm right. And as you see, Enlil is mentioned many, many times. So is this just a storybook written over, wait for it, 3,000 years of tablets? 3,000 years. So not only has someone actually got to write the original story, they've got to hope that everyone else follows that narrative, that they're, you know, princes and that they're the leaders and so on and so on. So you see it's starting to make a little bit more sense that actually genuinely are real people. And when I say people, aliens, but they look like us. And here again, the Babylonian legend of creation. Again, this is from Gutenberg.org, and they've translated it. They're talking about here the god Marduk. Funny how it's a god, isn't it? But we'll get all to that later on. And they're all gods, basically. All the Anunnaki were gods, because gods, when you type in gods, you'll realise that is, let's go back here, that's their race name. I know it sounds stupid, but obviously it's not when you just take 2 seconds to think about it. Someone's got to have a race name. So when you type in gods, guess what? They're all gods, gods, and it goes on. So that is their race name, which makes a lot more sense than, you know, an invisible mighty being that's not around. So here again is another word where it talks about Ea, E-A, which later he gets given the name Enki, which is why this one here, the Babylonian legend of creation, says Marduk, the god Marduk, the son of Ea, which is in brackets Enki. So this isn't Sitchin saying this. So again, I'm trying to prove the point that not only is Zecharia Sitchin correct, that we actually were genetically modified, and I'll get to the good stuff soon, by the Anunnaki. So then you've got to ask yourself, okay, well, is there any evidence that, other than just texts, that Enki and Enlil were alive? So here is the British Museum, and they actually have cylinder seals where they've, again, these are images, which I'll just show you here, images of various people, Enlil, Enki, and so on. And over here on the left hand side it says named on the inscription Enki. So let's just go through some of these, there's loads. And another one here, another cylinder seal, and lo and behold it's got Enki, and again Enki, and another cylinder seal. So let's just say, if this was a storybook that was written over 3,000 years up and down the whole of the Middle East, by people that probably couldn't read or write, you know, there was only a handful of people that could read or write back then. So for them to write about Enki and then get people to carve these tiny, this is only about an inch or two, this cylinder seal. And obviously this is what a tablet would look like. And again, this one's talking about, wait for it, Enki. Another one, you get the idea. Now this is an actual carving of Enki. So you'll see the turban style hat that he wore, so you can differentiate between Enlil, King Anu. So this is Enki with his long beard, and the bits in there are lapis lazuli. So they did themselves up with little bits of lapis lazuli to give it a braided appearance. But when they first came here, they had long hair and didn't braid it until they got here. And there's another carving of Enki, again genuine. Now this one's Enlil, talking about Enlil, this tablet. So obviously the brothers, there has to be Enlil as well. And here's Enki again. This one's in a museum. So this is an actual carving of Enki. Again, you can tell by the turban style hat. a project that was funded by the European Union. So this is looking at basically Enkis and Enlils and whatever happened back in the Middle East. So this project looks at the temple. There was a temple that was made for Enki and one for Enlil. Both of them got unfortunately destroyed. You know, this whole project that they're doing for the European Union, would they, if they thought this was any way remotely to do with a storybook, would they spend so much time on writing about the size of the actual temple? The temple was rectangle, measuring 41 metres long by 23 metres in a single structure composed of a courtyard, sanctuary and 19 rooms and narrow chambers. This is Enki's temple. Pretty impressive, if you ask me, for a storybook. And here's some cylinder seals with Enlil and Ninlil, his wife. Now, originally his wife was called Sud, S-U-D, but when he married her, she had the name changed to Ninlil to match his Enlil. Now, funny enough, priests, the oldest known priests, used to say that God had a physical body and had a wife and lived in Israel. You can probably guess where Enlil and Ninlil lived. You guessed it, Israel. So I think we can prove that they are physical characters in our history. So now we can get on with the good stuff. Before I move on to the really juicy stuff, I have to address the opposition for the Lost Book of Enki, and that would be the Bible. And the reason for that is because when you read the Bible and you read the Lost Book of Enki, you'll find many of the same instances in there as told by Zecharia Sitchin. Later on we will get to the actual translations of the original text to show that they are copies in the Bible from the older texts. There's always some debate on who wrote the Bible. Now, there's apparently 12 apostles that were chosen to write the Bible. However, Moses did apparently write some of the earlier stuff because he was given the information by God so that he could write down the old information that happened before he was even born. There's a problem here because some of these people have actually copied similar to what Moses said. However, they weren't given the divine information, in which case, how did they get the information to write about stuff that they weren't privy to? So they either copied Moses and changed it, because obviously it's not word for word, or it wasn't them that wrote it, or they was copying older texts. I know which one I'll go with. The Sumerian language is the oldest language in the world. In fact, the oldest written proof of the Sumerian language was first found on a Kish tablet, which is now Iraq, dating back to approximately 3500 BC. However, as we will go through these dates, through this long video that I'm doing, we will see that the dates are manufactured by mainstream to fit their narrative, because they certainly don't want to tell us that these tablets are 9,000 years old as opposed to 3,500. But we will get to all of that as we go along. Contradictions in the Bible. Now, if we're going to go through Zecharia Sitchin's book, we have to see whether or not the competition, which is the Bible, actually has got things wrong, and then we'll look at the Lost Book of Enki, done by Zecharia Sitchin, to see whether there's any contradictions in that, as in the translations. So here we have many contradictions, and this isn't me making them up. Anyone can find all the contradictions. In fact, that's how I first realised that there was issues with the Bible, was when I was trying to learn way back when I was very young about our history, and it turns out there was just too many contradictions. I have a very logical brain, and I can't see why these contradictions would be there. And as you see, it just goes on and on and on. There's at least 144 contradictions in the Bible. So now we need to see whether or not the Sumerian cuneiform has any contradictions. Turns out there is none. Even ChatGPT can't give us any examples of any contradictions. However, if you look here, yes, it says there are inconsistencies in the Bible. So even ChatGPT knows that there are errors in the Bible compared to the Sumerian cuneiform tablets. You could argue that there's less tablets than there are pages in the Bible. So let's have a look how many words there are in approximately in a Bible. 773,746 words in the Bible, and that consists of about 1,200 pages. So let's have a look now at how many tablets there are of Sumerian. So between 30,000 and 100,000 tablets that have been translated, nearly 2 million that have been found. But so if we just take the middle of that, let's say 70,000, where it says between 30,000 and 100,000, let's take 70,000. Now you then break down how many words are on a Sumerian tablet, which works out to be 4,400 approximately. So then you times that by the 70,000 books, and you end up with a hell of a lot bigger number. I think that's 308 million words, compared to the Bible, which has 773,000. Not even a million. Not even a million. And we've got here 308 million. So when you've got 308 million words and not one contradicts itself, compared to a Bible with only 1,200 pages and 773,746 words, the logic between the amount of words and pages compared to the Sumerian cuneiform, compared to the amount of contradictions in the Bible, one would argue that the Sumerian tablets would logically be the first port of call you would go to if you want to research your true history, would you not? Because I would. The cuneiform tablets actually have anything that the Bible may have copied from. So just to let you know, the cuneiform writing is a writing style. So for example, we have calligraphy, which is a writing style, and cuneiform is a writing style. So other people that followed on from the Sumerians, such as Babylonians and Akkadians, they actually adopted the same style of writing, but in clay tablets, but it wasn't the Sumerian alphabet. For example, it would have then been their own alphabet, the Babylonian and Akkadian. Just giving you a distinction there between what the Sumerian tablets were. So when I'm talking about Sumerian, I'm physically talking about the place where they wrote Sumerian tablets. Whereas if I mention cuneiform, then it could be Babylonian, Sumerian, Akkadian, and possibly some other languages that may have also used that style of writing. Now, here is a translation book done by Robert W. Rogers in 1912, and it's called The Cuneiform Parallels of the Old Testament. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and read out absolutely everything, but you can probably guess what that's saying back in 1912, before the Rockefellers had their chance to change history. So this person here had translated many of the tablets and said, hang on a minute, this predates the Bible, and yet the Bible, or the Old Testament, is saying pretty much the same thing, but obviously the translations are different. Now here is a list of when these languages first came out, and as you see down the line, Hebrew is way down the line. So many words have been taken from different languages for the Hebrew Bibles, and we know that because we've got words like angel. If you look here, you'll see the word angel was actually a Greek word, but the direct translation at the very beginning is messenger. Messenger. Obviously, we've changed it over time to add words like harbinger, angel of death. That is all made up by man. Why they did that, I don't know, but you know what people were like. So there's no evidence of angel of death whatsoever in ancient texts. It's just something that we've bolted on. So we've got proof that the Hebrew definitely copied older text with the word, for example, angel, which should be messenger. Doesn't mean it's spiritual. We've added the spiritual. And the reason why we've added the spiritual is because the messengers would go up and down into heaven in the older text, which I will come to, don't worry. And the reason why they go up and down to heaven is because heaven is space. That's the word back then for space. So why are they going up and down, telling Enki what's going on and telling Enlil what's going on up in space, and even taking some of the characters of old, as it says in the Bible, as well as it says in the ancient text, which I'll get to, is because they were Anunnaki messengers. And these messengers also had titles. So, for example, what we now call as an archangel would be a pilot. And I'll prove all that later on when we get to talking about the messengers, which are actually in the old translations. There's no word for angel back then, it was messenger, and the messenger would do this and do that. We have now bolted on spiritual simply because they go up into heaven and come back down. Do we call an astronaut spiritual? No, we don't. So it's so easy for us to just bolt on whatever we want. And the interesting thing was, I was listening to a religious radio station, and one of the presenters was asked, how come an angel can come down? And do you know what this religious person said? He said, well, they manifest themselves into a human form. What a load of crap. Because if he can make up that, because there's no evidence whatsoever, there's zero evidence in the Bible that they manifest into human form, because they are Anunnaki and they're messengers. So they go to people's houses and chat with them and go and sit down and have dinner with them and breakfast. I could then go by the Bible and say they are transformers, robots in disguise. Because if you can make up anything, and this religious person did on his radio station, because he can't find the reason, because obviously he's not looking at the proper texts. So if he can't find the right reason, all he's done is shoehorned an explanation in. This is why I couldn't look at the Bible properly back in the day, because I need to have the logical reasons for it. I can't just have make up crap lies to fit the agenda that you want.
It's possible that some offspring from the Anunnaki and humans were given the role of messenger. This would allow the Anunnaki to stay out of the way of humans. Here are a few examples of why they think they are angels. Messengers transformed into a human form. Genesis 18, 1, 2, New International Version. The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. This passage describes the appearance of 3 men who are later revealed to be angels visiting Abraham. They appear in human form and interact with Abraham, delivering a message about the upcoming birth of his son Isaac. That does not mean they transformed, it means 3 Anunnaki came to meet Abraham. Hebrews 13, 2, New International Version. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. This verse suggests that some individuals have unknowingly shown hospitality to angels appearing as ordinary human strangers. This also doesn't say they transformed. As you can see, they fill in the blanks to fit their idea. Judges 13, 3, 6, New International Version. The angel of the Lord appeared to her, Samson's mother, and said, "You are barren and childless, but you are going to become pregnant and give birth to a son." Here, the angel of the Lord appears to Samson's mother and speaks to her, indicating that the angel took on a visible form recognizable to her. Again, another one where an Anunnaki appeared, because he went to them. It doesn't say he appeared from nothing. My friend appeared to me the other day. It was nice he took the time to see me. My friend was not an angel, but still appeared to me.
And another word other than angel is Elohim. So Elohim was plural, by the way, gods, and is a Hebrew word meaning gods. Of course, the original word would be gods, which case we've proved that the Hebrew did copy the older text, because where else would they have got the word God from, if not from something that they copied from, which is why it says it's a copy of the word gods, which is plural. And also, the interesting part here is the Hebrew version gives the impression that it belongs to a single deity, particularly the God of Israel. So we've got the Bible literally saying that God of Israel is God. But of course, God wasn't in Israel, was he? He was up in heaven, in space. Well, actually, funny enough, Enlil did set up his home when Enlil is one of the Anunnaki, and he would be the main supreme god. However, our father, who was the one who created humans, would be Enki, the supreme god, the wrathful god, the one that wanted to wipe us out, as per the Bible, as per the ancient texts, had a place in Israel with a wife.
According to Jewish tradition and belief, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem is considered a significant location associated with the presence of God. This building is a reconstruction of the original, Enlil's temple. All the major Anunnaki had temples, and I'll show that later in the video.
Even the fact that the Enlilites were the ones that were sent into battle, not Israelites, and that's because it was Enlil's lot.
Exodus 19, 5, 6, New International Version. Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a power-hungry leader that wants the Enlilites to obey him. Compared to his half-brother Enki, I can't see an almighty being having favorites of all his children. Then later wanted to kill them. Exodus 32, 9, 10, New International Version. During the time when Moses was on Mount Sinai receiving the 10 Commandments. The Israelites, in Moses' absence, created a golden calf and worshipped it as a false god. God expressed anger and considered destroying the Israelites. The passage states, "I have seen these people," the Lord said to Moses, "and they are a stiff-necked people. Now leave me alone so that my anger may burn against them and that I may destroy them. Then I will make you into a great nation."
I think you get the point. AJ was wrong to say that Sitchin was the only one we can look to for information on the Anunnaki. Remember, my video is 3 hours long. If you want to see the full version, visit my website.
OurTrueHistory.co.uk.
AJ in his video said this.
Planet of the Anunnaki, hiding in the far reaches of our solar system, does exist, not just according to ancient tablets, but according to NASA. The home world of the Anunnaki has been called the 12th planet by Zecharia Sitchin. NASA calls it Planet 9. Others call it Planet X. The Sumerians and the Anunnaki called their planet Nibiru.
It turns out, while everyone calls in Nibiru because of Sitchin, I've done my own research, it appears Sitchin translated it with 2 eyes, but all the other translators spell it Nibiru, and those other translators didn't know that Nibiru was Nibiru, a planet. I have produced a 10-minute documentary called A Shrine to Nibiru. Here is a clip of it. You can get to my videos from my website. And Nibiru is the home of the Anunnaki. So this gentleman here, Dr. Michael S. Heiser, I have done a couple of videos on him, and I've even emailed him back in 2012. So he's got a website called sitchiniswrong.com. So it'll be nice for us, forgetting Sitchin, let's go and look whether or not Nibiru is real. Says these are the things that he can't find. So basically, Zecharia Sitchin has gone round and read many different translations that we can't get to see because he's gone to, even lived in Israel. So I can't go there, and they're not on the website, so I can't read the tablets. So we have to go by what we can now see, which is what this gentleman is saying. Obviously, we know that the secret military complex went in and smashed up artifacts and pretended that there was ISIS when they went in there and stuff. So watch my other videos if you don't know what I'm on about. But let's see whether we can connect Nibiru with Enki or Enlil. Nibiru. So it's spelt by Zecharia Sitchin, Nibiru. Nibiru. Now, we've got translations of a place, well, we'll go through it together, but a place called Nibiru without the second I. So it's Nibiru. And these are in the translations here in the Oxford University. So what I've done is I've found all the words that mention Nibiru. So bear in mind, it's just missing I, and obviously people do translate things slightly different. we're going to go through and see whether or not Nibiru is an actual place in these texts, and we're going to see whether or not Nibiru is a planet. And the reason why I say that is because as we go through these, you'll find, well, let's just go through and see. Okay, so here is the first tablet, or tablets. It's got segments there, but this is Pabisang's journey to Nibiru. So if that's a person's name, would it really be a journey to Nibiru? Would I be going a journey to Fred? But if I was going to a journey to Nibiru, then that makes more sense. Anyway, so we'll just take where it says here. You can watch the full video if you want, but you can probably guess the correct spelling of Nibiru is Nibiru. Please remember that I am showing evidence. I don't sit in front of the camera and talk. All my videos show evidence. But what's more worrying for me is that he says Anu wasn't his name, it was his title. Here is a translation from ancient texts. The kingship in heaven, or the Kumarbi cycle describes the succession of kingship among the gods. You will see Anu was his name before becoming king, showing AJ is wrong on this.
The kingship in heaven, or the Kumarbi cycle, describes the succession of kingship among the gods. Here is a translation of the part where Alalu is overthrown by Anu. Alalu was king in heaven, mighty Alalu, king in heaven. The throne of kingship was his, the scepter of command in his hand. But the storm god Anu arose against him, the son of Anu, the storm god. He set his foot upon the footstool. He gripped Alalu and cast him down. The earth shook, the heavens rumbled. Alalu fell beneath Anu. Down from the throne he tumbled. The kingship of heaven was taken by Anu, the scepter of command from Alalu's hand. Thus Alalu was overthrown by the storm god mighty Anu. The gods looked on in wonder as the heavens echoed with thunder. Anu, the new king in heaven, ruler of all, his power given.
AJ said, the Anunnaki live for 200,000 years on their planet. This is wrong. They only lived 120 years on their planet, but because 1 year of theirs is 3,600 years on Earth, they could live for well over 400,000 years. We know this because the ancient texts tell us the amount of shars. A shar is one orbit of Nibiru, which takes 3,600 of Earth years. We know when the Anunnaki arrived here and how long they stayed, as they wrote it down. Technically, they should have slept on Earth for around 30 days and stayed awake for 30 days. This would be 1 day on their planet. But all the texts I've read, they tried to sleep for just 7 days. This allowed them more time to work here on Earth. The worst part of what the Why Files say is this.
Anu thought Earth sounded perfect. The journey would be dangerous, but times were desperate. Soon Nibiru would be making a close approach to Earth. The timing was perfect. He urged them to depart immediately.
The problem here is that in the tablets in the Columbia University, translation by George and Ryan Moorhen, it states that Alalu fled after being beaten by Anu for kingship. Alalu went to Earth and found gold. He contacted Nibiru and told them, remember, AJ said that King Anu sent a probe and then sent down his people. Have a listen to the translation of the tablets.
Moorhen Collection Akkadian Tablet MC2894A. Alalu was defeated in battle, and Anu was hailed as king and taken to the palace. However, Alalu did not return to the palace. He sneaked away from the crowds because he feared doing what Lamu did. He quickly went to where the celestial chariots were, but no one knew. Alalu got into a chariot that could shoot missiles and shut the door behind him. He went into the front chamber and sat in the commander's chair. That which shows the way filled the chamber with a bluish glow. He woke up the firestones, and their humming sound was mesmerizing. He brought to life the chariot's great cracker, which was shining with a reddish light. Alalu from Nibiru got away in the celestial boat without anyone else knowing. Alalu set his course for a snowy earth. He chose his destination from the start by keeping it a secret. What the second part of this Akkadian tablet MC 2894A says. Alalu's flight in a spacecraft that had nuclear weapons. He heads for the 7th planet, Key, Earth. Why he thinks gold will be on Earth. Alalu skillfully put the chariot's wings around the Earth's ball to make a circle. In the middle, you could see both dry land and watery oceans. I have reached my goal. He told the insides of Earth to pick up on the beam that went straight down. He shouted with excitement. Gold, a lot of gold, was shown by the beam. It was under a dark area and in the water as well.
So where AJ said they sent a probe and then sent the Anunnaki, it was actually Alalu who fled Nibiru and came to Earth. He found the gold, then told them he made a deal with King Anu that he would be in charge on Earth. King Anu agreed and then sent down 50 Anunnaki. On the Why Files video, AJ said this.
There were groups of hominids living in the forest around the Anunnaki cities. These were our ancestors. They were either Homo heidelbergensis or Homo erectus. The Anunnaki took one of the hominid males and attempted to cross his genetics with the Anunnaki.
The problem with what AJ said about Homo heidelbergensis or Homo erectus is that Homo sapiens have genetic contribution of Neanderthals to modern humans is the most significant among these three species. The influence of Homo heidelbergensis is likely present but less well defined, especially as it relates to populations outside of Africa. And Africa is where the Anunnaki put the first Homo sapiens to work. South Africa was called Abzu. Homo erectus, while an important ancestor in our evolutionary history, did not contribute directly to the modern human genome through interbreeding. In other words, the two homins AJ said are the least likely to be the species the Anunnaki genetically changed. It was Neanderthal. The other problem is AJ said it was a male they took. Here is a translation from the tablets in Columbia University.
The essence is transmitted when a male sperm fertilizes a female egg. Two knotted threads detangle and combine to form a garment. Let a male Anunnaki and a two-legged female conceive. Let a hybrid child be born.
As you could hear, the Anunnaki used hominid female. Another problem is that AJ said the Igigi were a slave race and showed an AI image of a creature that is not an Anunnaki, suggesting that the Igigi are another alien race and not the same as the Anunnaki. I have heard bad researchers say this, so I'm guessing the Why Files has just listened to them. But I've already covered this in a previous video. Here, a clip from that video. You'll see the Igigi were just the young Anunnaki.
Here is a Sumerian tablet that proves that the Igigi were the younger ones, the sons of God. This translation, including the wording in brackets, are done by the University of Oxford, which agrees with Zechariah Sitchin. A hymn to Marduk for Abi Isu A, C 2.8.5.1 king who gathers up the divine powers of heaven and earth. Foremost son of Enki, Marduk, mighty lord, perfect hero, foremost of the great princes, a name for the Igigi gods, strong one of the Anuna, the great gods who have given him justice and judgment, great prince, descendant of holy An, lord who decides destinies, who has everything in his grasp, wise, august knower of hearts, whose divinity is manifest, who shows concern for all that he looks upon. Your ancestor An, king of the gods, has made your lordship effective against the armies of heaven and earth. However, in the Enuma Elish, the translator L.W. King around 1910 said they were the older gods. This is incorrect, as I've already read out. The leader of the senior gods was Enki from a translation. I feel L.W. King may not have read all the tablets at that point. They may not have been all found to make a clearer picture. This next passage is from the AI Chapt GPT. In Mesopotamian mythology, the Igigi are generally considered to be younger gods or deities. The term Igigi itself is believed to derive from the Sumerian word Igi, meaning youth or youthful ones.
My documentary goes on way longer, but I think you can tell the Igigi were not a slave race, nor were they a different alien race. Remember, the Igigi, sons of God, came down and bred with human women. That's because they were on Mars and heard that back on Earth the Anunnaki were breeding with the humans, So they came down and took human women. I've only just scratched the surface of the errors in the Why Files video, and yet my video is nearly as long as the Why Files video already. If you want to see more of where the Why Files video is wrong, it's probably easier for you to watch the 3-hour video called Lost Book of Our True History. I'll put the link in the description. I mean, no malice to the Why Files show. I do enjoy watching it, but put yourself in my shoes. I've been researching for over 40 years. I show evidence, and then I get people telling me I'm wrong because they had watched other people's videos that don't show evidence. All I'm trying to do is to get the real information out there. Thank you for watching this, Our True History.